Hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're at in the world, and welcome back for well, I want to say Hornet Security webinar, but this really isn't a usual webinar. Welcome to our very first Fireside chat. When I try to think of where this fits in terms of a webinar or a recorded video, to me, it's kind of like in that sweet spot between a podcast and a webinar. So I think it's going to be a fun one. My name is Andy Surwich. I'm a technical evangelist here with Hornet Security, and I've got a good friend of mine, Leah, on today. How's it going?
Hello.
It's good to have you here. We have a lot of cool stuff to talk about today, and I'm really excited about this format too. I think it's going to be a fun one. So let's go ahead and get started here. So again, my name is Andy Surwich. I'm a technical evangelist with Hornet Security. And yeah, I've been in the industry for about 20 years here. I'm also part of the Microsoft MVP program in a cloud and data center management competency. I'm available out on Mastodon. I used to be out on Twitter, but not out there as much these days. But my handle out on Mastodon is @AndySandwich on the infosec.exchange instance of Mastodon. So with that, I will pass things over to Leah for her introduction.
Hello, I'm Leah Fay. I was really, as I wrote this, I was counting the years and thought, whoa, such a long way now. First, I was data protection officer in a hospital, and then I switched to IT security and security awareness, and now I'm team lead of the customer success team of Hornet Security, and I help CISOs and customers to get awareness in their companies.
You know, you're having to deal with CISOs on a regular basis. So you've got some interesting stories to share with us today, which we're going to get into, I know, but I'm really looking forward to it, Leah. I really appreciate taking the time to be here today. So with that, real quick word about the sponsor of today's webinar. We've got Hornet Security, so that's the company that both Leah and I work for. So we really see ourselves as the leading cloud email security compliance and backup provider for Microsoft 365. And our portfolio consists of a number of different products and features, but really kind of our flagship product is 365 Total Protection and 365 Total Protection Enterprise Backup. And really what this does is it covers all aspects of security for 365. And you know, our partner base includes 5,000 plus partners. We've got 50,000 plus customers worldwide, and we are an international organization. So we've got offices in DC, Montreal, Germany, kind of all over the place. So really, we've been around for since 2007, I think. So we've been around for a while. And I always like to mention our security lab as well. Our security lab is the team that is dedicated to the 24/7 monitoring of all of our email traffic, continuous evaluation analysis, and reporting of not just email threats, but we're looking at all kinds of different threats these days too. So, well, from there, I know we've got a lot to cover in a short amount of time, Leah. So I figured let's just get to our fireside chat here. Now, every time I looked at the slide, I saw the hot chocolate and marshmallows, and well, I'm sad I don't have any sitting here with me. So I guess we'll just have to pretend, right? So, but we got a fun talk coming up here. And as you mentioned, you work with a lot of CISOs, right? And I think what helps as kind of a baseline here is, what does the day-to-day life of a CISO look like? I've got my own assumptions I can make based on the CISOs that I know, but I know you're talking with CISOs a lot more frequently than I am. So yeah, if you could talk to us what the day-to-day life of a CISO looks like and maybe what some of their common challenges
are. Sometimes I think a CISO is something like a sandwich position, you know, the sandwich child in the middle.
Right.
And I think CISOs have some problems of this position because they have not a free budget, and they need to ask and explain, and then the employees are asking, why do I need IT security? I just like to do my work. Leave me alone. So much time with these phishing mails. Don't waste my time. And the CISO is standing in the middle between the CEO, which is saying, okay, we need security because it's expensive if we don't have, and the employees who says, I don't know why we need security, make a better firewall. But the magic key is the human firewall.
Right, exactly. And I really like that terminology, the human firewall, right? And when I think about the types of problems that CISOs have to deal with on a regular basis, I don't envy them their job because it's not an easy job. Like you said, they're kind of in that sandwich position between the end user who wants balance between ease of use and security. But then on the other side, like you said, you've got the C-suite who's coming down on them saying, hey, either because of active threats or because we're in some sort of regulated industry, GDPR, or in the States here, we have HIPAA, SOX, PCI, half a dozen others, right? So that puts a lot of pressure on the position of the CISO. So definitely, like I said, not a position I envy. And I've got some data here that I wanted to just kind of talk about as we kind of frame today's discussion around the CISO and the types of things that they have to deal with, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the human firewall in more detail here in a second, but I kind of wanted to call out the exclusive facts and figures on the right-hand side. So these are from one of our security lab reports. I'll have a link to that later in the presentation today, but these are just some of the numbers, right? So here at Hornet Security, we see 33,000 new email-based threats on an average day, 13,000 ransomware attacks per hour, 361 sophisticated phishing attacks per minute. So that'd be like your typical spear phishing attempts, right? And then 8 what I would call highly sophisticated multi-vector fraud attacks per minute. So an attack that is targeting, you know, a person's email and their phone and or their PC, right? Multi-vector at the same time. So again, if I go put a CISO hat on and I'm looking at these statistics, I'm like, it seems insurmountable. It seems like a wall I can't climb, right? So it's, yeah, it's definitely a tough spot for CISOs. And I imagine a lot of the CISOs that you've talked with, Leah, have kind of voiced the same opinion, I'm guessing, right?
Right. Before 1 or 2 weeks, I saw a picture on a platform where a man with much arms was standing in front of a wall. Behind the wall was water, and in the wall was written in the water malware and phishing and spear phishing. And the man tries to step every finger in holes. This is a picture. You can. It's great.
Yep. And it's a perfect example of this problem. I think the other picture I've seen kind of floating around social media is you see the knight in full plate armor from top to bottom. It's got the little visor and there's an arrow sticking through the visor, and the arrow is labeled, you know, that user that clicked on a phishing link, right? So I mean, so yeah, these are the problems that CISOs have to deal with. So we've talked about strengthening that human firewall, right? And really what it comes down to is some sort of security awareness service. So I guess, again, to kind of create a baseline for this conversation, can you kind of run us through what is a security awareness service, Leah?
How many time do you have?
I know, right? We have probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes left here.
The security awareness service is a platform in our control panel where you can you have a view on some numbers. You know, the ESI. It's our KPI to make employee security measurable. And you have on this dashboard some key facts: how many mails did we send, how many clicks on links do we have, how many credentials did your employees give, how many macros they've opened. But the most greatest thing on it, I think, is we have a graphic which shows to you the psychological tricks, which are the ones with the biggest impact on your company.
Oh, okay.
every scenario of our spear phishing engine has some psychological tricks. You know, if you take me, once a time I clicked, once a time, and it was a mail from my boss, and the disclaimer no phishing, and it was so it's on my graphic. It is I don't know the word. If your boss is saying anything to you, then you do it. Pressure from higher.
Oh, right.
This
So
is,
like it was giving you a task to do, right?
yeah. And this is one of the facts. The other is the disclaimer, no phishing. I thought I work for a company whose main job is doing phishing, and I thought they are nice to me and they make the disclaimer that I know it's no problem, but it was my failure. And in our control panel now we can you can have a look on it. You see which psychological trick has the most impact, and this is such a big potential for our customer success team to say, okay, these are the tricks, and this is what you can do to give your employees more strength.
I think that's great because there's so many different vectors of attack that can be enabled by phishing, right? You've got the urgency, you've got the those phishing emails that they seem so perfectly timed. So the example I always give when I'm thinking of that is I know that my personal mailboxes are just getting filled with bogus messages that look like they're from UPS or FedEx, right? Hey, you've got a package coming today. Click here to schedule delivery. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But you think for your average user, if they get the right phishing message at just the right time, that timing psychology is quite powerful. Unfortunately, to the benefit of the threat actor, right? So definitely makes things interesting. And so we look at what security awareness services are. The question that always comes up when I'm having conversations with people is, okay, well, you've told me what it is, and you kind of told us, you know, what kind of troubles CISOs are having to deal with on a regular basis. But really, you know, can I just depend on the tools I've been using all along, right? So, I mean, you think about the stuff that we've used in the security industry for years and years, right? It used to be we just had to worry about the four walls of our building, and we'd put an antivirus agent on every endpoint, and we'd put a firewall in place at the entrance point of the network, and we called it a day, right? And well, that doesn't really work anymore. And that's kind of the other part of this slide comes into play, and why I wanted to include this slide in this conversation is the fact that those older detection methods, they used kind of a signature or hash-based detection method, right? Where, you know, hey, we see this possible threat, we're going to compare it against this table over here of known threats, and if something doesn't match up, oh, it must be fine. Well, those traditional detection methods don't work anymore, right? And to what you said earlier that I think really resonates with me and a lot of the people I talk with is that's where that human firewall comes into play, right? So, and really kind of becomes part of that holistic security strategy because those traditional methods just aren't enough anymore. And we've talked about phishing quite a bit so far in this conversation as well. I've got some more interesting statistics I wanted to share as part of this conversation that's from the same report that the previous slide you just saw. But if I remember correctly, when this report came out, this was from an analysis of 2 billion, with a B, 2 billion emails early this year. And 40% of the malicious items in that 2 billion were phishing attempts. So that speaks to the level of success that threat actors are having with that type of attack method, right, Leah? And that's where the security awareness service comes into play, right? So, I mean, our security awareness service specifically trains end users to spot phishing, right? And or maybe you can speak to this a little bit as well too, in that I've found when I've talked to end users that are using our product, they find that not only are their users becoming more aware of phishing specifically, but it seems like they become just more aware of security in general, right? Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yes. The danger is in the TV, in the internet, everywhere. The people speak about phishing, about malware, zero-day attacks, or anything like this. So the people pay attention, but now they need to learn how to handle it. There are some points the employee is helpless or feels helpless if you don't give him help. They need to know how to act within phishing mail. And this is why you need to have an process for it. And the employee needs to try it. It's like a fire alarm. You need to learn how to act in a fire alarm. And this is the same. You need to learn how to act when I get a malware or a phishing attack. And this is why it is so important that the employees use the reporting way with phishing simulation. So they work with it, they try it every day. And in the case of reality, they know, okay, now I click here, no problem.
Right.
And if I was not fast enough, I know I can go to my CISO and say, hey, I think here's something wrong. Can you please have a look? But this is, you need to learn.
Yep, makes sense. So before we move on and talk a little bit more about the employee security index, there's one other statistic I wanted to share, again, to just kind of highlight the troubles that CISOs have to deal with. And you've probably seen this in your conversations as well, I'm guessing. But what I wanted to focus on in this slide is the industry email threat index. And as part of our annual report, we look at the types of threats in email going across to all the different industry verticals, right? So we look at far more than just 5 that you see on this particular graphic here. But what we found in our last report, that it doesn't matter which industry you're in. There's not that much of a deviation in threats between automotive to research to education. We found that it's pretty even across the board. So the fact is that if you're a CISO or you're in charge of security for, you know, some obscure industry vertical, you can't assume that you're not a target. So basically what we found is that anybody who has the ability to pay a ransom is potentially a victim. And I'm guessing you've run across that as well, Leah.
Yeah, and if you pay one time, they attack you again and again because you pay.
Right.
You're like automat for money.
Right. That's an unfortunate state in the industry, but you know, we're certainly doing our part to help people deal with this. So you mentioned the ESI earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it stands for Employee Security Index, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So that's basically our scoring mechanism for the end users that are going through the awareness service, right? So can you tell us a little bit more about the ESI and why it's so important in terms of training?
Okay, first, if I need any words, I will ask, because it's mathematic a little bit, and
sure,
mathematic in German is strong, but in English,
Gotcha, no worries.
The Employee Security Index is a KPI. It's a number which makes the security of your employee measurable. For this, we have several email levels, level 1 to 5. In next time, level 1 to 7 will be, but level 1 to 5, there are, now wait, the word, tolerance values.
Okay. You got it.
On every level. And the tolerance value is the value in percent between a secure company and an unsecure company.
Okay.
And the lower the level, the lower is the tolerance value. So I think level 1 is 1.1% tolerance value, and level 5 is, I think, 3.2, but I don't know by, yeah, okay, got it. This is the level. And we have emails with links, and the links are going to a login page. So if an employee clicks on the link, he got the first tolerance value point. Then he gives his credentials. There is the next tolerance value, because just clicking a link is worst. But clicking a link and give your credentials, it's an overkill.
Right.
So we have, in this case, we have 2 tolerance values, also in macro openings. You have a file, and if you take the file and then say, okay, I like to use a macro, then you have 2.2. Because it's the worst what you can do. And this is why the KPI is falling down really, really fast if there are too much logins or macro openings.
Gotcha. So it really kind of gives a good indication of a given employee's security posture, right? How good are they at detecting threats? So I think it's important to, like you said, measuring success, right? And if they're not doing so well, they need a little bit more training, right? So I mean, one thing I often see come up whenever I'm talking with people about the employee security index is like, well, okay, you're assigning scores to people. Can I keep that anonymous if I want? If my end users have concerns about being identified for poor security practices, and maybe there's some privacy concerns there, right? Maybe some employees don't like that, but that's something we can do with our tool, if I remember correctly, right?
Correct. We are able to train anonymous, but our system can see with our single user booster and the productivity booster on user level which need of training each user has. And you don't need to train the you know the word. In case we say it's better to train anonymous, because then you can give your employees a secure area to learn. They don't have fear that they click and they are in the TV because this employee is clicking. So they are in groups, and you can see if the employee security index is worse in this group. You can take the group of maybe 30 employees and give them a lecture by yourself. So you can train them. If you see, okay, this group needs more training, I go to this group and say, okay, I see you have problems, so much logins, so much file opens. Ask me your questions. I am here for helping you.
I love that approach, because I've seen it happen so many times in the past where end users they're scared that, oh, I clicked on a link, I'm going to be punished now, right? Or there's going to be some sort of repercussions. I really like the anonymous approach, because like you said, you put it perfectly. It gives them a safe place to learn about security, and they don't have to worry about being punished for it, right? And I think that solves one of the biggest issue I've seen with security awareness services in the past, is that I've seen some organizations try to do it and they never get their end users on board with the idea of security awareness service, because they're afraid of being punished, right? So I think this really kind of helps solve that, helps really solve that issue. Yeah, and the other area here that I've got in my notes I want to make sure we talk about, kind of around this same area. With our tool, we can also compare your ESI with similar companies in the same industry vertical, right? So, if I'm a manufacturer, I can go see from a security perspective how I stack up with my buddy manufacturer that's running down the street, right? So there's a lot of value in that area too, right? And the conversations you've been having with CISOs, I'm guessing that's, at least I have to imagine that's probably something they find value in, right?
The index of the branch is for them like a game. Are we better?
Right.
Yes, you are. Great.
Right.
Oh, not better? No, you need to train. Okay, here's the next 12 months.
Right.
And the same is on the employee level. They have their counter, and if you say, okay, the best 3-1 groups, then every group who is not mentioned like to be mentioned next time.
Right. So kind of gamifies it, which is always nice. That competitive nature in us really kind of plays a role there, doesn't it? So, well, Leah, in the time we've got left, I want to make sure we get into the training process itself. So if I'm an end user, what does the training process look like for me? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Sure. First, you get the first e-learning. It is a module IT and I. We take this because it opens your eyes for why does it affect me. This is the first step. And in the platform, you have a right to say, okay, I don't like that you use my name for phishing mails, because we send mails in the name of your colleagues. And somebody don't feel comfortable with this, so he can unsubscribe for this, but he does the simulation, but he can unsubscribe that we use his name. And this has 2 points. First, they feel comfortable, but second, they have the possibility to say, yes, you can not use my name, but I do the training. They have in their head, they have a yes. This is really, really important. They know, okay, I can choose. After the first e-learning, the first maybe 1 week later or 2 weeks, it's like you liked it. The first phishing mails are coming in. Every employee starts in level 1 because there's no need to start in level 5 and then fail, and then nobody likes to learn. So we start in level 1 at the easy level, and they are happy. They say, okay, I saw it, no problem, make it harder, please.
Right.
And then if they mastered the level 1, they go to level 2, to level 3, and on. But if they click, they can also fall down the next level from 4 to 3, from 3 to 2, and then try again. And depends on which counter in your awareness engine you took. 6 e-learnings per year, 8 or 12. The awareness engine will give video content with some interactive points. It's more like e-training, not e-video or e-learning. Right. And the employees can do the content. And if you have, I spoke about the single user booster and the productivity booster. The engine can see which user needs more help. And the engine can see, okay, this user often gives his credentials. And then the engine gives a video just with login credentials, a short 1-minute video to this user and say, okay, please look at this video for helping. Right. And if you have a user never clicks, he comes into the productivity booster where he gets just 1 mail per month. It's like a present for good work.
Gotcha. I like you put it that way. It's like a present for good work. There we go. So you keep mentioning the engine, and I know we've got a level of automation that's built into the security awareness service. So whenever in my past life, I guess I'll say, I spent 10, 15 years in the trenches as an IT person, right? Actually doing IT work. So whenever I look at whenever I look at a product, I'm always putting my engineer hat back on, right? And I know one common issue with these types of services is it usually requires a fair amount of time and effort for the sysadmin or the IT professional to kind of manage the solution. But I'm guessing with the automation that we've got baked into the platform, that's really kept at a minimum, right? Can you kind of speak to the level of effort needed by the system administrator to kind of manage the solution?
There are different types. You can have the really lowest level. So we have the email addresses and the names, and it's enough. So we can train in this level. Our system is a spear phishing engine, not a phishing engine, a spear phishing. So it takes the position of the employee and the apartment of the employee, and an HR employee gets HR mails, finance bills. You can add this to the employee list, but you don't need to.
Right.
The autopilot just works. If
Nice.
you like to have more and better simulation, then you can put more data into. But all the data you can do with LDAP synchronization or M365 synchronization.
Nice.
In case of LDAP, you need to prepare a string for the value, position, and language.
Right.
But you need to prepare these values for every employee in your AD.
Right. Nice. So that, you know, again, putting my engineer hat back on, that's a huge selling point for me. Is like, I still know guys and girls that work in the IT space, and they are absolutely snowed under with work. So the more help that we can provide, the better for them, right? Definitely. So, well, I know sorry, go ahead.
This is why we also have examples for communication. They get a letter for the employees. Hey, dear employee, we started phishing training, this and that, and you can do here and that, and here are all the informations. They get every paper they need from us.
Nice. That's again, putting my engineer hat back on. It's a solution that takes a lot. It takes a large burden off of my shoulders, right? Now I know my end users are getting training, and it doesn't require a lot of work for me to get it started. So I mean, it ticks all the boxes there, right? So, well, I know that we're just about out of time, Leah. So I've got a couple other things I want to go through, and then I've got 2 questions that look like they've come in. So just to kind of give everybody an idea of where this sits in our stack. So we've got, really 4 different solution sets here at Hornet Security. Starting from the left, we've got our total protection business, which includes spam, malware protection, email encryption, email signatures and disclaimers. And then as you move to the right, we add on additional functionality. So where the security awareness piece of our stack is all the way on column 4 here. You can see we've got down at the bottom, the phishing and attack simulation, the security awareness training, and the ESI report that Leah and I have been talking about as well. If you're interested in any of this, you can go out to sales, or you can email sales@hornetsecurity.com for more information. You also go out to hornetsecurity.com, and we've got all kinds of information out there as well. I always like to include this graphic whenever I'm having this discussion as well too, is because we really see security awareness as, one of those core pillars of just general security, right? So if you think of it like a circle, security awareness is really on the prevention side of things, right? And of course you got your protection, response, recovery, right? And we've, got solutions that can help you with every stage of that circle. From there, I want to share just a couple of other resources for everybody. We've talked about ESI, Employee Security Index, quite a lot as part of this conversation. So we do have what we call the ESI benchmark report out there. Fantastic piece of literature here. Excuse me. Basically, what this report talks about is the findings of an evaluation of over 1.7 million simulated spear phishing attacks. Available in multiple languages. If you're interested in that, you can go out to the URL there at the bottom of the screen. Additionally, you saw a bunch of statistics mentioned earlier. If you want even more statistics, That's what this report is for. So every year we do an in-depth cybersecurity report that kind of, like I said, looks at the state of the threat landscape for Microsoft 365. So if you're interested in that report, got the URL here at the bottom of the screen, heartsecurity.com/en/cyber-security report. Now, with that, Leah, I know we're about out of time, but we have 2 quick questions I want to make sure we covered before we sign off for the day. So the first one is, what is the biggest stumbling block organizations come across when starting awareness training for the first time? So let's say I'm an organization, right, and I've purchased the security awareness service. I'm starting to roll it out. What are the things I need to be looking for in terms of mistakes, right?
There, in which country? In Germany, we have a point. It's in Germany. It's called Betriebsrat. It's the people who are looking that the rights of the employees are not broken.
Ah, okay.
This is a big, you know. But if you look at other countries without something like this, the biggest is to make the employees understand why it is important for them, and make
right.
the together thinking that what can I do to prevent my colleague for getting attacked.
Right. That's good advice. And sorry, go ahead.
And the other is getting money for this.
Right. Right. Well, I think it's a common challenge all CISOs and, well, just about any department has, right? But you brought up a good point, something that I don't think I'd ever even considered myself as well too. So in the States, we would call that like our human resources department, right? And like you said, you want to make sure that any awareness training you put in place is not going against some sort of privacy regulation that may be in play or something like that, right? So definitely want to check with your HR department on that. But yeah, that's good advice. The second question we've got just before we wrap up here, I know we're just about out of time. So we've talked about, so the question is, you've talked about getting end users on board. What if you can't get leadership on board? Any advice for that? So I've got some thoughts on this, but I don't know if you want to tackle it first or not.
If you have thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I spent, like I mentioned earlier, I spent a lot of time as an engineer, boots on the ground. I've spent some time working for MSPs doing technical account management as well too. And I've come across CEOs and leadership teams before that, we're never going to be a target. We're too small, or nah, I'm not worried about, like, they don't see security as a concern because in their mind it can't happen to them, right? And what I've always found is that when it comes to certain individuals that you may be having a hard time convincing, you kind of have to figure out, like, how are they viewing the problem? What's their perspective? And the example I always give is, it's not really related to security, but the method still applies. I was trying to convince an owner that, hey, your servers are 9 years old and they need to be replaced because they're going to start failing soon, right? And come to find out, this owner was a mechanical engineer by trade, and so he understood things like failure rates and the manufacturing process. So what I actually did to help kind of convince and show that, hey, these 9-year-old servers are a problem, I went out and I started pulling industry failure rates for hard drives, for motherboards, and I said, hey, your hard drives are good for, I don't remember what it was, 2 million writes or whatever, and you're at 4.5 million writes, right? So that changed the conversation for him. Now he can, I'm relating it to something that he can understand. And I think that method applies to security awareness training too. You just need to figure out where that leadership team is coming from, what their concerns are. You need to try and pivot the conversation based on that. But again, that's just my own experiences. I don't know if you have any other advice, Leah.
I add one comment too. sometimes they say, why do we need this? We have a firewall, we have sandbox, we have everything. Why do we need to put holes in our security for this?
Right.
And then they can use their browser and open their private postbox. And there is no firewall, there is no sandbox, there is just this is one point. But the most effective method is to ask them for the togetherness. We are strong together, like chain. And if I am a leader, the employees are looking to me. What does Leah do?
Right.
And this is why the leaders are the front line. The employees are looking to the leaders and they do what the leaders do. If the leader has say, okay, we have no time and this dumb phishing or like this is a big problem. Then the leader needs to open his eyes, because if there is an attack, his job is gone and every job else. This is why we need to make it strong together.
Yep, definitely. I like that approach. We're stronger together, definitely. So, well, Leah, I know we're out of time for the day. I want to say thank you for coming and sharing your knowledge and insights today. I get the feeling we're going to be doing more fireside chats. I really like this format, and thank you for being here, Leah. Appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. It was great.
Definitely, definitely. And all you watching, I really appreciate taking the time to come and join us today. And we hope to see you again for a future Hornet Security Fireside Chat. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you want to find out more information, you can always go out to hornetsecurity.com. Or like I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in the security awareness service and you have more questions, you can always email sales@hornetsecurity.com for more information. Other than that, we'll let you get back to your day. Have a good one. Stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.